Hey everyone. It's nice to see so many of you here for the start of the conference. So I know quite a few of you, but I don't know all of you. But to those of you I don't, I'm the telecoms, tech, and media correspondent at the Financial Times. And I've been doing this role for about 9 months now. And when I started, it felt like a bit of a different era. For starters, we were still in a pandemic. And I was told by my predecessor, who I think probably most of you know, Nick Fildes, that I'd come in at an incredibly exciting time. There was about to be huge change in the industry, he thought. Regulators and policymakers were looking more favorably on moves that would enable greater investment. Inflation-linked price rises would allow companies to grow in a way that they hadn't been able to for many years. And it was likely there would be more consolidation across Europe. But an incredible amount has happened in the last 9 months, as many of you know. So there's a war on Europe's doorstep, which has pushed up energy prices, inflation, and interest rates, and has triggered a cost of living crisis in many countries around the world. What's more, we have a new Prime Minister, a new Minister looking after DCMS, Michelle Donnellan, and a new monarch. So I think one of the big questions I'm grappling with today, and probably many of you guys, is how much all of these dramatic changes have unsettled the sector's trajectory. Luckily, I've got the ideal people here to discuss that with me. So I'm going to start with Katie Milligan, who is Chief Commercial Officer at Openreach. The format is going to be a few one-on-one interviews, followed by a panel discussion. Katie, do you want to come up? I'm not very near the water. Yeah, pick that up. That's great. So, as I mentioned, we're in a cost of living crisis, and some of the companies that Openreach wholesales broadband to are really trying to look at ways to reduce prices at the moment. But they say that they're hamstrung by the high prices that Openreach sets on the wholesale market. Do you think it's time that those inflation-linked wholesale prices and also the £2 fibre to the premises surcharge is rethought?
So, no. That's the easiest thing for me to say, but let me break it down and explain it. So, Openreach's pricing is regulated, and we've come off the back of, for as long as I can remember, maybe the last 10 years or so, where we've had year-on-year price reductions. And as you mentioned in the intro, we're at a different point. We're investing significant sums of money. We're investing £15 billion to take fibre to at least 25 million premises. And the inflation-linked pricing is very important for us to enable that level of investment. But I think one of the things for us is we look to make sure that the pricing is where it needs to be. If I look at last year, we were actually underneath CPI. So when CPI was around 4.2%, we came in just under 4%. And on top of that, we make sure that where some of our key products are, we've actually done some commercial incentives over and above, so that where they're important products, we're actually incentivizing the right customers to go onto those products. So for example, FTTP is actually CPI minus on some of the important tiers. So I think given where we are at the moment, we want to continue to invest, but we'll be very careful with where we put that CPI pricing. But it is important to us.
Is it possible that you could reduce the price?
Well, so everything is possible. Regulation doesn't state that we have to put up CPI, but we are subject to inflationary pressures just like anyone else in the industry, even without the 15 billion of investment. I'm sure we might come on to it, but we've seen in the last 9 months at least £100 million of inflation. So we will look to do commercial incentives where it makes sense, but equally we will be looking to continue with CPI for the meantime as part of our regulation.
Got it. Okay. So quite a few people are forecasting that Openreach's dominance, or at least kind of extreme dominance in the wholesale market, is set to erode. And that's partly because of the proliferation of altnets, but it's also part because of Virgin Media O2's expansion and new joint venture, which we'll come on to talk about a bit more. Also, Openreach's net new customers turned negative in the first quarter of this year. Does Virgin Media O2's expansion plan and a potential talked about merger with TalkTalk. Does that threaten your business?
So there's quite a lot in that, so let me unpack
Yeah,
some
go
of
for
it.
it, go for it.
Only some of it, because I'd be here all day explaining it. So if I look at the broadband net add position, it was picked up by a number of people. I'm sure many in the industry have actually seen it. What we actually saw was COVID had brought forward broadband penetration for us. So if we look at broadband take-up, it actually increased significantly in the last 2 years of COVID, which is why we're seeing some of the softness now as we come out of the COVID period. Do I think that the competitive losses are significantly stepping up? No, I'm not seeing that, but I'm sure some people might mention where they are. We don't see the published numbers. So it's more around the broadband penetration at the moment. But listen, we will see losses. We've always said that. Net will be broadly flat across the next 5 years with growth in the market and competition losses. But that is where we are with a competitive environment, and competition is good for everyone. I think the importance for Openreach is to continue doing what it's doing. We're building at scale. We're connecting at scale. I think we've got over 2.3 million customers. That's not insignificant. So our key thing is to keep our head down and just do what we said we're going to do. Build big, build across the country, commercial and in rural, and connect customers at pace. And we just need to keep doing that. There's no point in me speculating on the rumours. I mean, you get to do that in the press. We could all do that, but we can't be taken off track. And we'll just have to respond as and when it happens.
So you've sort of factored in a certain amount of loss into your growth plans?
We have indeed, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Are you concerned at all? I mean, you may have seen my article this morning on TalkTalk's research. Are you concerned that not enough consumers will see the benefit of switching from copper to fibre? And could that affect your growth projections? Yeah,
so it's really interesting. It's something that we've all been seeing as an industry for a while. It's really important, and the research that Tristia is going to talk about backs up what we've all been seeing. I think Which talked about it before, which is unless customers really understand it, then that point of inflection is less apparent in terms of upgrading to fibre. But there's other ways to do it. And I think one of the things that we've done in Openreach is the construct of the Equinox deal, which is fully about, instead of selling copper on a go-forward basis, you sell FTTP. And that allows us to put into the market more and more customers onto FTTP. And that has enabled the 2.3 million customers I talk about. So we are getting the take-up, but by making sure that it is around when you buy a new service, it's automatically FTTP. But it's not just that they're taking the same speeds as copper. We're actually seeing customers take the ultra-fast speed. So once they actually go onto the product and they experience it, then they get to enjoy the much elevated speeds and better service. So yes, I do agree with some of it, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. But we do need to increase awareness, etc., and look at ways to incentivize customers onto the platform.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm sure we will come on to talk about it more. You've probably been asked this many times throughout your career, but so across the telecom sector, there have been quite a few recent examples of service companies being split from the network company.
Yep.
Do you think that is the future, whether it's now, whether it's in 5 years, whether it's in 10 years, that is the future of Openreach and BT?
Listen, I don't have a crystal ball. I have no idea. I mean, listen, the thing for us is whether or not that happens or not, we are still at the point where we're investing, we're continuing to build out FTTP. I mean, people who are expert in it will tell you it's not that easy. But the thing that gives us a lot of hope at the moment is the strategy is very key. Whether or not it's the Openreach strategy is fully backed by BT and the board, which is to build fibre, to build it fast, and to get customers onto the network. So we're kind of just ignoring it to a certain extent and just getting on with the day job.
You're not really that interested in that question?
Well, it doesn't change what we do day to day. It's a bit like you could sit and speculate, but if it doesn't change your strategy, then why worry about it in the short term?
And I mentioned at the beginning, and it's something that probably everyone here is thinking about, so costs are going up, right, massively, whether it's labour, whether it's energy, whether it's components, parts. How is that going to impact? How is it already impacting your build plan?
Yeah, so
we've got like 30 seconds.
So it's not affecting the build plan to date, but the costs are increasing. We're seeing it in steelworks up 40%, poles up 7.5%. But our job at Openreach is to use the scale that we've got to make sure that we can either transform to avoid the costs or to use the scale to pull things forward where we can escape some of the inflationary pressures, and also to diversify a bit. So either insourcing or finding new forms of labour that gives us some protection from it. So it is going to affect everyone, but the challenge is how we counteract it and try to work against it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We'll have you back on stage very soon. Who have we got next? Lutz Schüler, who's CEO of Virgin Media O2. Hi, Lutz. So I already mentioned your expansion plan. For those who don't already know, kind of is led by Liberty Global and Telefonica to reach 7 million new homes, up to 7 million new homes, between 5 and 7. So some people, as you know, have criticised that expansion plan for having quite a challenging economic case, as you're moving into increasingly rural areas. It's something that we've discussed before. And also, it's challenged by the fact that the risk of overbuild and the reality of overbuild is increasing. So my first question is just, how is it going so far? Are you moving towards signing up any wholesale customers? And final part of the question, what do you say to people who think that renting from Openreach or other wholesalers could have been a kind of cleaner way to build or grow your footprint?
This is a lot of questions.
Yeah, sorry.
Good morning, everybody. Hopefully I will remember them. So first of all, we are very glad that we managed to create this fiber joint venture with InfraVia, because this puts us in the position now to build 21 million fiber homes for sure in this country. We are upgrading our own cable network to fiber until 2028, 60 million. And now we have ensured 100% the financing of 5 million homes, and if it goes well, we will deliver 7 million homes. So that means this brings us in the position to be, in my mind, 1 out of 2 national fiber networks in this country. That's number one. Why are we confident? Well, we are expanding since 5 years, and we have built almost 3 million homes, expanded to 3 million homes, and with our own brand, we came to a penetration of 30%. We have the highest ARPU in the market, £50, so this is proper payback. Now, obviously, we want to accelerate the build, and we want to increase the penetration. And for that, we are also now in wholesale negotiations, which are not easy, I have to say, right? There was easier deals I've done. But it's a balancing act, because on one hand side, we are investing billions, and we need to also challenge Openreach and the market. On the other hand side, we don't want to do it in a price-aggressive way, that the entire market goes south, and none of us has the billions to get to fiber, right? And one comparison, maybe you hear it from my accent, I am German. The UK is covered with 1/3 fiber. In Germany, it's only 15%, and it's very slow. So Germany is lagging the entire Europe league with the fiber rollout, which is not a good place to be in. So therefore, I think we are in a pretty good spot.
But what about in terms of wholesale customers? How is that going in terms of signing them up?
You mean our wholesale deals?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, or is it way too early for that?
Well, it is, right, we are in the middle of negotiations, Anna, so,
okay.
I mean, if I could close it here, I would do it, but there needs some more negotiation.
Okay. So you've said before to me, and I think in public forums as well, that network operators need, you think, between 40 and 50% of market share in terms of customers from their fiber rollout in any market or any area that they're building in. Is that feasible for Virgin Media without acquiring another internet service provider? Would that actually be possible?
I mean, you can make the math, right? It's public knowledge. We are, when we expand our network, then we get to a penetration of 30%. Why is that enough for us? Because we are currently not wholesaling, so we get £50, right, per customer, while a wholesaler gets only a wholesale rate, which is maybe £20. Yeah. So to get from 30 to 40%, you need a bit of wholesale, but you need not to be to be entirely aggressive with Openreach or anybody in the market. So yes, the short answer is I'm confident that we get to this penetration. And I mean, we found a partner in the joint venture, right, InfraVia. Mm-hmm. They are doing fiber investments all over the world. And they think that our strategic position is very strong, right? They put more than 2 billion into this fiber joint venture.
Okay. So, given that we're going to move on, because I'm sure we're going to come back and talk about that a lot during the panel. Given that consumers are now demanding more and more kind of really high quality, pure broadband, do you think that the days of complex telecoms packages, of subscriptions, broadband, broadcast are over, or at least are kind of coming to an end, diminishing?
I think the opposite is the case. So, I mean, most of our customers, and every second household in the UK is our customer, has more than one product with us. Right? Why wouldn't you get fixed and mobile from the same operator? Right? You get benefits with it. You get better value for money. It's easier, more convenient for you. So actually, the UK is behind when you compare convergence, fixed mobile convergence, penetration of the UK with other countries. So that is happening. Also in the UK, most of the broadband customers have also video from the same operator. And yes, video, right, is the video packages are changing. Customers are more interested in OTT, less into basic linear pay TV. Yeah, so you have to change the way you package, but you have to offer it. My personal view is that we will head to a pricing and product environment we know from the airline industry. So
industry,
yeah, because so at the moment, right, it's one fits all. In the future, every household has a different need, and therefore you have your broadband package, your mobile package, your video package, your several hardware services, maybe your gaming package, maybe your health package, and that leads to an individual pricing. So we are well underway to offer every household a different package.
And you see that consumers are really asking for that. That's something that they want, or is it something that
yes, I mean, yes, they are. You have to make it easy for them, and you have to understand what the household want. And you don't want right? Sometimes because it's our industry is doing what I call dynamite fishing. Put dynamite in, get all the fish, but the needs are more different per household. And that means you have to do bait fishing. And for that, you have to understand every household a bit better. This is where the data kicks in. And then you have to do an individual pricing and bundling per household. And I think this is the way it goes.
Okay. I would love to ask you more questions, but I think we're just running out of time.
Thank you.
We'll
see you later.
Yeah, see you
Thank
later.
You.
Next, we have Greg Mesch, who... Oh, yes, please, thank you. Greg Mesch, who's CEO of CityFibre. Lovely to see you.
Yes, lovely to see you.
So one of... Is it working okay?
I think it's working.
Excellent. So one of the products of the crisis that we're facing that I mentioned at the beginning of my talk is that the rate of obtaining money and finance, whether on equity or debt markets, has skyrocketed. CityFibre isn't yet a consistently profitable business and has relied heavily on those markets, even this year. So is the current situation with rates at where they are, is that going to affect your viability?
Well, CityFibre is 11 years old. We've been raising capital almost every year for 11 years, and we've been successful at it. The good thing is, if you've been following the news, we raised 1.1 billion in equity and 4.9 billion in debt just in the last year. In fact, we closed all of that in 2021, so we got ahead of, unfortunately, the crisis in the financial markets. So from CityFibre's perspective, we're in, I think, the best bucket you could be in. We're fully financed for our 8 million rollout, and we're not publicly traded, so we don't have the scrutiny of up and down, and so we're in a perfect spot ourselves. But whenever the financial markets are in difficulty, anybody that needs to raise money, or even if you're needing to use shareholder money or your dividends, everything gets under pressure. So from a CityFibre perspective, we've never been in better shape in our entire 11 years. So.
And you don't foresee that you're going to have to tap those markets again anytime soon?
No, not at all. In fact, we tried to get ourselves in a position, and it was really architected from the 2018 when we decided to take the company private, and we got Goldman Sachs and Anton, which are two of the strongest infrastructure investors maybe in the world in this space, and we got them to come in and buy into the CityFibre model. And right from that moment in 2018, we said, let's fully finance the company as quick as possible. So we're fully financed. The only thing we would need financing would be for opportunities. So do we want to grow from 8 million to 12 million? Well, that would need more capital. Do we want to do a lot of acquisitions? That would require more capital. But our core business of rolling out to 30% of the UK is sound and protected now. So that's a good spot to be in.
A lot of the other altnets, the smaller altnets than CityFibre, are going to be under stress, though, right? Do you think that there was already, when I joined 9 months ago, everyone was already saying there are going to be companies that go under, but it may take 2-3 years. You just kind of have to watch this space. But do you think that timeline is just massively accelerated?
Well, I'm old enough that lived through the dot-com crash when the financial markets shut, and then it caused consolidation, it caused re-engineering of business plans. The result of that period was very healthy companies emerging. So I think that it'll go through a cycle now where anybody that needs capital, regardless of whether you're a big public company or you're a small private company, if you need capital, you're going to have your business plan under much more scrutiny. It's going to be harder to get equity. It's going to be really hard to get debt right now. So you will have to work through that cycle. That is in itself an opportunity. So it helps management teams tighten up, control what they're doing, and be more rational as investors. And that goes for Virgin, it goes for BT, it goes for CityFibre. We're going to be much more rational and much more selective with our capital now. The day of thinking we get unlimited capital and build everywhere is over. So now it'll be much more about sequencing your build where you can get the best returns. And in the altnet space, because I can just speak for us and that little club of altnet fiber builders, it's more important for us than ever to sequence our builds appropriately, right? We know that BT says we're going to build everywhere all the time as fast as we can. We know that Virgin now is sparked and they're going to build everything everywhere. And that's putting the UK in a wonderful position, right? 20 to 30 billion of private capital is pouring into this market. And it's pouring in because the alternate fiber guys are saying they're going to do it. And because they said they were going to do it, it sparked the industry to move. We don't want to lose that. That is the spark that has created this change. So I think the financial markets shifting some will create tremendous opportunities. Some of it will be rationalizing the builds. Some of it could be because some firms decide to come together. Coming together will also create scale and more mass. So I envision good things.
But if there was one that was particularly well situated in a footprint that you didn't already have, you'd probably want to go in and buy it. But do you then need to go in and tap those markets again, right, to get the capital to do that, which is challenging.
Well, so we would much rather have everybody in the alternate space sequence their builds appropriately and get their capital and spend it and build. We're not interested really in partnering, as you say, or acquiring or merging companies that do not have money or are not in a real what I would say compatible spot with us, right? That's just our same model for BT, same model for anybody. You're gonna do some merging, some acquisitions, some consolidating when it's rational and makes sense. So it won't make sense for us to acquire somebody that has an unfunded plan that requires us to fund them. So there'll be some rationalization taking place.
Sure. You mentioned the fact that Openreach is building everywhere, anywhere and everywhere.
Well, that's their claim.
All of the time. Virgin Media is now trying to do much the same. There's a few more limitations.
Yep.
You've today announced that you've reached 2
million.
Reached 2 million premises.
25% of our build plan's done.
2 million of 8 million. Yeah. But given the speed at which those guys are going, can you realistically achieve that aim? Or, as some people forecast, is the aim to actually, at some point then, get bought out?
Well, our aim is to be the most successful fiber operator in the UK. We're pure fiber operator. We're the second largest, and we don't plan on ever relinquishing that. Our build rate, we think, is faster than almost anybody. And the reason is we're going at a rate across a smaller section of the country and densifying that area. So in our cities and on our strategy, our plan, we think we're undefeatable. And the reason is we're across cities and finished. Milton Keynes is finished. It's already, we announced today, it's at 25% penetration. We just finished the city less than 12 months ago. It's already at 25% penetration. Every single city that we finish up is achieving somewhere between 15 and 20% right around when we finish. And then it's on a trajectory of over 1 to 1.5% a month in every one of our cities. That's across 75 cities we're building now. So we think there's nothing in our way other than ourselves now. And that ourselves is how we self-organize, how we manage ourselves, how we control ourselves. We have done the hard bit of scaling during the pandemic. We started the pandemic with 600 employees and exited with over 2,000. We started the pandemic with 10 build partners, we exited with 29. We scaled a huge machine up during that period, and now it's all about knitting it together, controlling it, focusing it, and just doing what we said we're going to do.
So you're really confident you'll get to that 30, 40, potentially even 50% penetration in all of those cities that you're building in.
It's all
in
the
spite of Virgin and
the,
Openreach.
In spite of that, and the reason is because we're a challenger. We often want to talk about it as just equal math, but it isn't equal math. It's really, the math is all controlled by Ofcom, to be honest, and that will control the entire market. But the math is very simple from our perspective. We stand on 5 things, and we'll continue to stand as a true challenger. Better products, meaning better speeds no matter what. Better speeds, symmetrical speeds, lower latency, always. We'll stand on better economics, always. So not only will you get a better product, you'll get better economics. But we work to install you faster, we keep the network up longer, and if it's broken, we fix it faster. Those are the principles of a competitor in a challenger market. So what we are as a challenger will take 30 to 50% of the marketplace if those 5 principles hold. And we think those 5 principles will hold.
Great, thank you so much. We'll chat again in a bit. And now we've got Ahmed Essam, who's CEO of Vodafone UK. Hi, Ahmed. You too, you too. I'm finding all of my questions.
You had the difficult ones out of the way?
All of them are gone, yeah. Here we go. So, given where you come in the line here, my first question for you is: you buy from both Greg and Katie. How do you compare them? How do you find it?
I thought the difficult questions are. First of all, I think it's important to start maybe a little bit on where the market is when it comes to convergence. So I think Lutz pointed to this, and you can argue that in the UK we're a little bit behind the European benchmark when it comes to convergence, but there are a lot of valid insights from a customer perspective where they want to buy everything from the same provider. Our strategy in Vodafone We come from with a big mobile legacy. We've started broadband back in 2015, and I would say right now we're one of the fastest growing broadband providers in the UK. And this is all on the back of what I would say asset-light strategy. So obviously we're not building fiber ourselves, but I would argue it's a little bit more difficult to connect and retail, or as difficult as building fiber itself. And we're very proud of the partnership we're having with both Openreach and CityFibre. I think it's quite complementary from my perspective at this stage. We're able, banking on these partnerships, to offer more fiber to the home, full fiber, to up to 8 million homes in the UK, which, if you compare it to some of the competitors, they all sell on their own footprints. So leveraging an asset-light model can only enable customers to get access from one provider to a wider full fiber footprint. I think that's the first thing. The second thing comes to service, and I think as the country goes into full fiber, I think there is a natural uplift in service as you get more full fiber penetration, but there is also learning, and some of the learning we benefit from CityFibre. We try to improve our systems, and some of it from Openreach, and I think it elevates. I think competition helps elevate service. And then the third aspect, back to the point that Greg was saying, is this challenger mentality. And I think I benefit a lot working with CityFibre, getting this challenger mentality, and how we drive not only the commercials to a better space, but also drive the service, the provisioning to a better shape. So I welcome this competition, and as a retailer, I would love to see more competition when it comes to broadband.
Okay. We'll talk about that more definitely on the panel. This is the question that I asked Lutz, but do you agree with him that the market is moving more and more towards convergence? Or do you think that people are kind of demanding just really good quality broadband and separately really good quality mobile? They don't really care if it's coming from the same provider. They're not really that interested in these bundles. What's your view?
I think on this one, and we've seen convergence developing in different shapes around Europe and in through different strategies. So there are markets that went really aggressive when it comes to convergence through discounting. I would argue heavy discounting, so the sum of the parts can get to 30-40% discount versus the original price. I would argue this didn't really create much value and didn't substantiate the investment case for growing from there. And then there's I would argue both statements are correct. I mean, there are some customers who don't really care, and some customers who see the benefit. But I think the driving insight is, some customers would prefer to go have a one bill, have a one contract in many cases to manage, have less relationship. We're all dealing with complexities in life. So there is an argument from an inside perspective. And then as you go to what I would call the third benefit on a product level, which is, if I'm able to offer fixed and mobile, I'm offering experiences to the customers that doesn't stop at the door, that he can take beyond the door. If we get these two products combined, I also offer the resilience that comes from, in many cases, mobile backup connectivity. So there are some benefits from a product space that can get there. I think why it's not developing in the UK is because in general, it's not a heavy discounting strategy. It's more of a benefit-led strategy. And I think customers every year are seeing more and more of these benefits. I think combining our offers on 5G and what we offer on full fiber is providing a nice route towards a natural adoption that's growing every year. My acquisitions are mostly on convergence at the moment, but how you migrate the old base and how the old base decides to migrate is adopting a different pattern.
So if we are kind of moving towards a benefits-led rather than discounts-led convergence, do you think that undermines the rationale for consolidation in the mobile market? that so many people have kind of, that's again, when I started, everyone was saying, there needs to be more consolidation in the mobile market. That's what everyone's driving towards. But it seems like that might undermine that thesis.
Why do I think that? I thought this question will never come, at least in the introduction, but it's an interesting question. I think let's go back to the consolidation, and we have to start by looking at the market. And even when you look into some of the published data on the UK market, you will find there are a lot of operators who are not making the cost of capital in terms of return. So it's not the right way in terms of running businesses, and it's definitely not future-proofing the industry to securing the returns it needs to keep investing in digital infrastructure. So we operate in an industry of scale by definition, and scale requires in many cases consolidation. But I don't think consolidation is the silver bullet when it comes to returns. I think the role of regulation and how it shapes the new world of full fiber and 5G is as important, if not even more important, for consolidation. So I know you're asking about this. My view on consolidation, I think there is space for consolidation. I think even, and maybe I'm quoting some of the published Ofcom statements, where there's no magic number and every case should be looked at on a case-by-case basis. So, of course, it depends on what speculation you're talking about. I'm not going to go into specific speculation. But as we go into another round of investment on 5G, as we go into full fiber scaling, I think there is a strong case for consolidation, supported by an improved environment from a regulatory perspective.
Great. I have much more to ask you about, but our time is up, and I'll see you on
Thank
the panel.
you very much.
Soon.
See you.
So I am inviting up Tristia Harrison, who is going to give a presentation. Tristia Harrison of TalkTalk.
Thank you very much, Anna, and very good morning to everyone. So here we are at Connected Britain. I'm here to talk to you not about build. We've heard some very interesting comments on the panels and the interviews this morning, but really about customers. As we know well, full fibre is changing our lives for the better. It's extraordinary just to see how this conference has grown over the years. As a customer, it's quicker, more reliable, it just works. And the economic benefits of 100% fibre take-up are obvious. They run into billions. Social inclusion, jobs, productivity, education. Fibre to the premise uses 80% less energy than copper and manufacturing. It produces a tiny fraction of emissions. Treating health issues at home with fibre to the premise reduces the burden on hospitals and stress for patients. And we all know that we're future-proof too, for home technologies that haven't even been invented yet. And that's why we're all here today, I guess. It's an obvious point that's always worth making. For society to really benefit, as I describe, two things need to happen. Building the network, and we've heard about that a lot already this morning, and getting customers to take it up. And at the moment, build is our focus. There is vibrant competition, we've already heard that as well this morning, and there is an enormous amount of focus across government, regulators, industry, and media on build. And you'd be forgiven if you're looking from the outside in, that when the cables have been laid into the ground, it's job done. And I think we would all agree that's really far from the case. This technology is useless unless people use it. A lesson our industry has learned sometimes very painfully. There needs to be just as much focus on getting connections into people's homes as there is on building them. Customers won't automatically migrate, and I think we've all seen examples of that. That's because there are many barriers to take up. And across government and industry, we need to work much harder to break these barriers down. You might have seen in the FT this morning, thank you Anna, that we've been working with Frontier Economics to look at what those barriers are. And here is what we found. First of all, there are lots of projections for build coverage in the future, and that is thoroughly good news. And I think that the landscape for that, again, as we've heard from Katie, as we've heard from Lutz, as we've heard from Greg, that is moving very quickly. We're hoping for close to 100% build coverage by 2030. But what about take-up? At the moment, there are no such targets. Frontier Economics have estimated that millions of customers will still be on copper or part copper in 2030. They think that 1/6 to 1/3 of UK consumers won't have migrated by then, even when they're given the chance. So why is there so much resistance? We all understand how great full fibre is. All our companies are full of people with homes stuffed full of smart devices, streaming as much as they possibly can, and eyes light up when they chat about them. However, let's face it, no one really wakes up and says what they really want to do that day is change their broadband provider. It's a hidden benefit, not necessarily one you brag about. In fact, when people do think about switching, Frontier found that it's often fear of change that governs their decision. And I know Lindsay will talk about this in a moment. Ofcom are working very hard on this. Why is the changeover painful? The next point, really, I guess, is that it's potentially losing something that works perfectly fine. So a 65 meg or a 70 meg, it's probably fine. And take-up isn't yet at the scale where peer pressure is built up. The vast majority of people aren't on full fibre, and by and large, friends aren't yet giving us the impetus to switch. There's then affordability. The perception of added costs puts many people off too, especially since the legacy technology has served them extremely well through the test of the pandemic. In addition to the consumer risks, there are also technical barriers for industry to overcome, such as the complexity of voice over IP and creating digital voice. That continues to take time and huge focus. Lastly, there's another risk here too. And this, I guess, in some ways for today is closer to home. Entire rollout and build could be in jeopardy. If take-up is poor, financial backers may see further investment as a risk. That could hurt sentiment, not just in markets, but also with consumers. Copper switch off would then slip, slowing take-up, and we start all over again. Instead, a virtuous circle. If we all do all we can to make take-up as easy as possible, we will see faster build, greater visibility in society, across billboards, newspapers, and the rest, and more homes and businesses will get it, increasing the pressure to switch. And together, we bring forward the copper switch-off date. If nothing changes, millions of people won't have chosen full fibre, even if it's running past their front door. And unless we all work together, and I guess that's what we're collectively calling for today, we really need to sell these benefits and make the experience as easy and as great as possible. So what do we recommend? Frontier Economics, who carried out the study, found this to be, and I quote them, a textbook case for government intervention. So we're advocating for a new phase 2 of Project Gigabit, driven by the customer, not by the technology. Setting and tracking a target for take-up alongside the one that already exists for rollout would help put customers at the heart of this important generational national project. A new cross-government body to coordinate migration would be valuable, as would giving take-up ministerial responsibility. We in industry, of course, have an enormous responsibility, and I know I speak on behalf of my peers. We are all adopting fibre to the premise as a first mindset, advertising led by full fibre, making full fibre our highest priority sale. We've also been trialling lots of different ways to migrate customers across. Finally, we need to make sure we partner with all of those public and private bodies to make customer migration as smooth as it possibly can be. And for Ofcom, our report recommends helping industry identify and promote the clearest terminology that consumers understand. Setting a framework for copper switch-off would help industry plan to make the customer experience as painless as possible. And let's face it, it creates the new technology generations to come, putting the consumer at the heart of full fibre policy, because that is what is needed now more than ever, as today's research shows. Fibre to the premise is being built at scale across the UK. It is fantastic news. It's passing millions of homes, new homes and businesses every single year. Everyone involved should be hugely congratulated for that. But the only people that can really make this mammoth project a proven success are customers. And they really need to be at the centre of our next phase in all of our efforts. Thank you very much.
So next we have a keynote presentation from Katherine Ainley, who's CEO of UK and Ireland at Ericsson. There you are.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you to all the speakers. Delighted to be with you all today. So I thought I'd start with some of the events of the past 10 days. So a really moving event yesterday, and the Queen was a truly extraordinary leader. One of the things that we were reflecting on was how she had embraced technology and innovation. So in particular, she'd used radio during the wartime. She sent, I think, one of the very first emails, but I mean, she sent her first email in the 1970s, which is phenomenal. And then more recently, embracing digital media. So, you know, a truly remarkable person. And when we look back to 1926, when she was born, it would have been impossible to imagine where we are now with technology. And one of the things we do at Ericsson, our vision is about making the unimaginable possible, is we try to look forward. And we try to say, you know, what does the future look like? What will the world look like in 90 years' time? And I mean, we struggle with sort of 9, 10 years, never mind 90. So, you know, that's an amazing thing to do. And it will come as no surprise to you that I'm going to talk to you lots about 5G and how that can enable that future. We've heard lots about fibre, so I'm going to talk to you about 5G. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why it's important, about where we are today, and then also, you know, what I think we need to do at a top level on it. So first of all, back to basics. Why is 5G really, really important? And it's a really simple message for me that it's absolutely vital. It's about 100 times faster than 4G, up to 100 times faster than 4G. It has super, super low latency. And then it also brings with it incredible bandwidth and security ability. But what does that mean? Well, what can you do with it? Imagine billions of devices connecting together to prevent road traffic accidents. We could be using it for remote medical diagnostics, to do remote operations. And they can happen because of that lag-free connectivity. Or we can use them in business as well to help make production lines so predictive that they prevent interruptions to that production line before they happen. In our view there, 5G is really key for our economic recovery. It's going to transform businesses, it's going to boost enterprise, and it opens up huge opportunities across health, utilities, culture, and more. So beyond just enhanced mobile broadband, which is what people talk about the most. And we believe that 5G, or studies show that 5G can generate about £15 billion of additional economic growth for the UK. From a consumer perspective, we see new immersive experiences like the Green Planet AR experience in central London. And for those of you who were able to go, and for those of you who weren't able to go, there was a holographic David Attenborough who took you around. And the augmented reality experience was distributed through a 5G private network working with EE and the BBC. And to give you an idea of the latency that we saw there and to bring that to life, that was running at under 15 milliseconds. And because we like to use a nature metaphor, that's faster than the beat of a hummingbird's wing, to give you an idea of how fast that data was being transformed around. 5G will also provide equal access to mobile connectivity, and that's really important for bridging the mobile divide. It can deliver those gigabit speeds that we've been talking about, but to rural and disadvantaged areas and to places where fibre is perhaps a little bit harder to get to. And of course, 5G can help provide a sustainable future. Our research shows that global collaboration and digital innovation, carbon emissions can be reduced by 15% by 2030. So, 5G is incredibly important to the UK and to the economic and social environmental future. But what I want to talk to you as well is about where are we and are we ready to seize that opportunity. So I was going to do a little bit of audience interaction at this point and check everybody's still awake. Can I move to one of these mics? Does this one work? Brilliant. Okay. So what I'd love to do, and this is going to be roughly, because I haven't counted exactly how many people in the room. If you can, could you stand up? Just going to check that you're all awake. Humour me. So, if you all represent the UK population, if I could then ask this side of the room to sit down, please. And I've just realised who I've included in this side of the room. But this side of the room don't have 5G. So the UK population, if you split it in half, roughly 50% of the UK population don't have access to 5G at the moment. This side of the room do, which is fantastic. However, and I did do a rough count, but I didn't allow people standing, if I could ask this diagonal piece over here of chairs to stay standing and everybody else to sit down, that would be great. So these are the people who have at the end of 21, roughly 10% of the UK population had a 5G-enabled mobile phone or device. So they have a 5G phone or device, and they've got access to 5G connectivity, which is fantastic. You can sit down now. Thank you. I'll put this mic back. So hopefully that just brings to life for you all sort of where we are in the UK. And that little group over there, they are the people who are out playing in the metaverse. They are doing their video streaming while they're on the go. They are possibly even running their business from the train, looking at their operational stats and sort of interacting. So that's fantastic. But we need more. We think that's still not high enough. And actually, just to add to that, out of interest, because I think this is probably quite a techie-savvy audience, could you put your hand up if you have got a 5G phone? I'm just intrigued. Yeah, way over the 10%. I thought that would be the case. So that's great. However, for that little group over there, if you do have a 5G phone, it's probably not quite giving you the level of performance that you thought it might, that sort of exceptional experience you had in mind, because the UK doesn't make that top 15 list globally when it comes to 5G performance. And we are lagging behind, both in terms of coverage and in performance for consumers. So that's uncomfortable to hear. One of the other key points I'd like to cover today, though, is that the consumer experience isn't the only key thing. In the UK, we just aren't seeing the innovative services and transformational use cases built on 5G that will transform our enterprises, societies, businesses, and industries, and that's the prize of 5G. So the simple message from that is, the UK is failing to grasp hold of 5G. And that's an outdated, sort of consumer-focused approach to 5G that's holding us back. We're at risk of becoming an outdated market because our priorities sort of hang over from 2G, 3G, 4G, where we look at consumer coverage, we look at speed, and we look at consumer applications, and they are all important. But what we also want to do now is look forward to enterprise, to businesses, and how society can gain from that coverage and look more widely. So later this morning, our Chief Technology Officer, Bjorn Odenhammer, for the UK and Ireland, will be speaking much more about what we need to do to drive that on. We're working with all of the 4 main operators in the UK to roll out 5G, which is super exciting. But until then, I'll leave you with 3 calls to action on 5G, depending on the area that you're in. So first of all, we would love to see government departments to grasp hold of connectivity, and especially 5G. And see that on beyond DCMS, make sure that we've got the right level of investment, we're building into all our major infrastructure projects, that we are including it in all our economic and social and policy making decisions. So connectivity is at the heart of what we do to make sure that we're more efficient. Secondly, we need to really stay focused on how quickly we deploy 5G. This half of the room, it's fantastic. This half of the room still didn't have that 5G. And that means we can get greater benefits from 5G, and in particular around energy efficiency as well. And then thirdly and finally, we need to think beyond that consumer mindset. So entrepreneurs, businesses, investors, all of you, think about how could we take 5G and connectivity and do new things to help us through some of those headwinds that we've got coming. So all of this ties into, hopefully, everyone in this room being relentless in sharing our passion for that connectivity And if we don't, our worry is that it will be enterprises and rural communities that will miss out. The digital divide will deepen, and our national efforts to level up will be undermined. So I think Anna touched on this at the beginning. This feels like an inflection moment, and we all need to look back at this inflection moment and feel that we made that change. So thank you, Anna. Over to you.